Welcome. This is the STEAD informational session to go over what Strive is and talk a little bit about our STEAD K through 12 mini grants. Thank you for joining me today, and let's get into it. So, Strive is a National Science Foundation award, an F-score project, established program to stimulate competitive research. And Strive is awarded to Landmark College in Putney, Vermont, as the lead. We are partnered with Bennington College, as well as the Community College of Vermont and the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation. So altogether, we are collaborating to bring this project to life. It's the first EPSCoR project that has gone to an institution other than UVM, and our mission is really centered around bringing the rest of the state on board. Real quick, I'll introduce myself. I'm Devin Monette. My role here in Strive is the Communications and Operations Manager. Here's my email, but I'm sure you all received an email from me earlier. And I just want to introduce Amy Moreland, even though she's not on the call today. Amy is our research administrator. She oversees the onboarding and the processing of these awards once they're active. So together we really work to bring this funding to life and get it out into the hands of educators and folks who are doing this good work throughout the state. So I want to just speak a little bit more about Strive, and then we'll get into the scope of STEAD funding and how to structure a competitive proposal. So like I was saying, right, Strive stands for the Science and Technology Research Initiative for the Vermont Economy. And our purpose really is to bring in smaller institutions, so through higher ed, through K through 12, through nonprofits and community-based organizations, all trying to bring those together to support the development of STEM programming throughout the state and enhance the retention and the capacity of researchers and the strength of the STEM ecosystem from an educational standpoint into the research development and then into our workforce sector, and trying to really retain Vermont students and drum up interest in STEM and make a pipeline of talent to support the industries that do that type of work in Vermont. So let's get into STEAD funding. STEAD stands for the Science and Technology Educational Access to Development Funds. Apologies for all the acronyms already, but that is the world we live in. And these are $2,500 awards, really focused on supporting K through 12 students. It doesn't need to be a K through 12 school that is applying, but the funding needs to support some sort of programming or equipment purchases or a curriculum that is bringing those K through 12 students into a STEM learning experience. So, right, what is STEAD designed to do? It is a pool of funds that is here to kind of build programming that budgets don't allow for. So supplemental resources, whether that be lab equipment or STEM kits, professional development that will equip teachers to better deliver that programming, trips or special experiences to bring in industry experts or people that can really build awareness and inspire students to pursue STEM. And then coming back to our mission, right, really trying to build capacity. So it's a chance to kind of go out and take a chance on some innovation, some sort of programming that's going to enhance your organization's ability to provide this programming in the future without that risk. Um, we work with all sorts of experience levels, but we are trying to bring in new grant writers and build practice in working with federal compliance, as well as just kind of the pre-award and uh, uh, active award and post-award processes so that people get comfortable and familiar with drawdowns and how to invoice and how to write a strong report so that they're equipped to do that when they pursue funding outside of that. In that sense, you could think of it like seed funding. Um, and then broadening our participation, right? We want to welcome new students. We want to broaden the perspectives that are in STEM throughout Vermont. So, trying to increase the reach of uh, the programming that's being offered, whether that's through collaboration or just creatively thinking of how STEM can overlap with other disciplines, and all in the efforts of generating interest in STEM, right? And I think the best way to do that is to tap into real world science. What's happening in Vermont? What are some of the strongholds or um, active areas in industry or in research that are already happening in Vermont, and how can we replicate that in the classroom? So as far as kind of our stipulations, who can apply? K through 12 educators and anybody working in public or private schools, right? And as well as community-based organizations, libraries, nature centers, museums, nonprofits that serve K through 12 populations in Vermont, that organizations outside of Vermont that um, serve a K through 12 organization, a K through 12 student, right? That's allowed, but we are restricted to Vermont as our jurisdiction. That's the design of EPSCoR is that Vermont, NSF is providing funding to Vermont for Vermont students. And right, we'll go into it a little deeper when we look at our rubric criteria, but we're trying to engage students in a meaningful experience and really instill a STEM mindset. So we want to see projects that have hands-on components that call on them to do some inquiry and experiment based learning, and even better if that experience ties into what STEM opportunities are in Vermont already. So, like um, ecology, robotics, uh, advanced manufacturing, those are all sectors that there's a stronghold of industry in Vermont, and setting students up to um, build that linkage to understand that those are part of STEM and understand what STEM is, but then equipping them with the the skills and the mindset to understand the scientific process as they work towards those careers. So again, $2,500. As you may have seen in an email, right now is a great time to apply. We recently allocated some more funding to these awards because um, we were getting a lot of requests, and we understand the need to support this age. So it's a great time to apply 6+ awards per year, and that's over 2 deadlines. Um, and once a project starts, right, you have 12 months to launch that project. So with our August 15th deadline, we could look at that, excuse me, as um, realistically 6 weeks from then, sometime in late September, that you would hear from us and get go through the onboarding process, at which point you would be cleared to begin making purchases. As I'll mention again in a sec, right? But that's on a reimbursement basis. So we do ask that you don't make purchases before you are approved, because once that project starts, then we can begin the invoicing process. But all things kind of allowable costs, curriculum development materials, supplies and equipment, anything that is supporting student participation in that project, as well as professional development to build programming and equip teachers to do that job better, and an emphasis on industry or community engagement activities. Um, I'll share the link in the chat at the end of this, but we have a very simple application, and there is a budget template that we ask applicants to use just so that there's a standard budget being received. So this is kind of grant writing basics, but it applies uh, well to STEAD because we want to make sure that um, we're a good alignment with your project. So uh, first steps are really just asking what are your organization's needs? Why is that a need in your area and in your greater community? And trying to see if that matches with kind of what I've just conveyed. From there, really important to read all the guidelines and adhere to our deadlines. Proposals that are submitted after the August 15th at midnight deadline will be received. They won't be reviewed until the following deadline, which is not until February. And then really the most important part, right? We get a lot of applications, so identifying the problem, placing your project as a solution. How is it going to create meaningful learning experiences for those students? And what does that impact and outcomes look like in your community? What does it look like for those students? And then also a note on budgets, right? Just really be specific, research those costs beforehand. It's okay if the costs change and with time, but we want to see specific values, not approximate numbers. The budget is laid out like that for a reason, and that shows the forethought to kind of do the research. So here is just kind of the sample budget that again I'll make sure that you all have our template. It's available at our website, but I'll emphasize that you want to get as close to that $2,500 as possible. We work with a lot of organizations and we are trying to meet our own objectives in terms of getting this money out into the hands of educators and into these experiences. And it would make less sense for us to fund a bunch of $1,000 projects or $1,500 projects than to do more that are closer to that goal. So try to think about how can you expand the project if you're not quite hitting the mark, but get as close to $2,500 as possible. And I want to, for general sample purposes, this is not maybe as specific as we would like to see, but like cite a specific type of equipment. Make sure you are finding that in a catalog and finding the exact price and just kind of spell out as much as you can in that line what those costs are going towards. We can't support general operation funds and we can't really support operation expenses. There are some exceptions if there's something that goes towards that project and it is critical to enact your project, but we really need to see most of that expenditures going towards the student experience. So take that into consideration as you make your budget. Okay, so now I'm just going to go through kind of the 4 tenets of our rubric and try to just outline a little bit more detail what we're looking for. So active engagement in STEM learning, right? This is really speaking to a hands-on experience. How can we step away as instructors and put the learning solely in the hands of those students, whether that be through inquiry-based or some sort of experiential learning, um, STEM kits, or some sort of scaffolding to let the students do the learning, to let the students lead the learning experience is really great. And those kind of experiences foster collaboration that gives students a chance to build some of the soft skills that will support their overall growth, um, and tie into that STEM mindset that we're really trying to build. Um, so that's our first tenet: demonstrate wonder, right? And kind of an understanding of the relevance to Vermont priorities. So I'm sure, looking back on our own education, we all have an experience that sparked that motivation and really led us to want to pursue wherever our careers brought us. And we are trying to do that for STEM. We want to inspire curiosity. We want to give students that push to understand what um, what potential they have as learners and how that might put them on a path for a whole range of fields, right? And I'll say here too, STEM is just kind of the catch-all term, but there are lots of things that um, utilize kind of an inquiry-based mindset, a growth mindset around experiential learning and testing and hypothesis, and trying to bring that into action, and then repeating that to make uh, the end goal, to get closer to that end goal. So whether that's you know any host of uh, disciplines in Vermont that kind of fall into that category, uh, agricultural sciences, uh, working with your hands, and kind of an engineering realm. There's lots that applies there, but we want to just really bring those disciplines to life in these young students' mindsets, and give them an awareness of where they might find themselves one day in kind of the trajectory of what's available in Vermont. And mostly, right, trying to make these fun and inspiring experiences that they'll remember. Exposure to local pathways, right? This really ties into the collaborative component. We love to see uh, guest speakers or field trips to a local industry, or some way of tying a skill to a potential career or a sector of research, and giving students that vision for where they could find themselves in 10 years when they kind of find something that inspires them. We want them to understand that has significance in making our community stronger, and innovating new solutions to a whole array of challenges in the world. And the foundation is really in these types of experiences. Expanding or developing curriculum, right? And as well as programming. So, how can you build off of a program that already exists, and make it more sustainable or replicable? It's great to have a plan to kind of produce a curriculum set that then can be passed on, and uh, live with that program, so that the experience for students doesn't die when the funding ends. Um, and thinking, yeah, what kind of outside of the box, what are some of the new equipment purchases or experiences that can be incorporated to really make that experience above and beyond? So that we can support long-term learning for your institution, for your organization, and that, like I said, that the learning doesn't stop once the grant cycle is over. A couple do's and don'ts. Um, don't be vague in your goals, right? Really try to give us learning objectives that are clear and outlined. Um, Speak to these priorities explicitly and outline that clearly. The reviewers go through a lot of uh, applications, so um, as concise and to the point as you can be, and really highlighting how your project will hit those priorities. Avoid jargons or acronyms, um, and try to make your application as to the point and avoid long paragraphs or exceeding the word counts in the proposal. Um, we really want to hear about the measured impact. So the number of students, right? I think is a specific question in the application, but um, emphasizing who is this reaching, how many students, what are the outcomes and the projected reach of that, um, and yeah, take the reviewers through your project vision from start to finish, laying out the problem, how this project is poised to be the solution, and then what those outcomes will look like for the organization and your community. Um, I'll say we don't have room for visuals or graphics. Oops, this is I pulled this from another one, but right, speaking to the objectives and kind of giving us those uh, those bullet points is helpful whenever appropriate, and kind of really making sure that you are following the guidelines closely. Um, so happy to share more examples of previous awards, but I wanted to just highlight two real quick to exemplify everything that I've gone over. So these are two active awards. Fairhaven Union Middle School had a project called Nest Quest. Students were kind of spending some time observing the local schoolyard, understanding what types of birds inhabit their playground, and in learning about that bird identification, then they then learned about those species and what their needs are for bird houses or for nesting sites, and they built some bird houses. And then there was a placement of some sensors in those birdhouses to monitor activity and give those students some data to then interpret and analyze. Um, Another middle school uh, has an innovation lab, Main Street Middle School in Montpelier. They launched a project called Design, Build, Code Exhibits with Physical Computing. These were a really cool interdisciplinary project where students had um, dioramas that they built, and sometimes those were um, kind of a one-off for their time in the innovation labs, and other times it was, say, a social studies project that they were doing a final culminative project, and they would bring that diorama into the innovation lab, and they would equip it with a makey circuit board. Is a product that you can code different functions to and tie those functions to flashing lights, or you can open a door or turn on a fan. All kind of cool features that then the diorama would be interactive, and as the presentation was given, the diorama would come to life and kind of highlight certain components based on the coding that the student provided it. Um, I'm going to highlight just a couple other ones here too, because these are just to middle schools, and we have lots of other types of organizations that were awarded. The Rich Earth Institute is a nonprofit that does research, but also provides educational programming for local schools. They had a project called STEM Lab and Urban Hydrolink. This created a hands-on model that students could explore a nutrient and water cycle, and kind of they would bring this lesson around to different schools where then students could kind of play with and understand how human waste plays into the water cycle and kind of follow its trajectory. And then the last example I'll give for right now was from the Vermont Farm and Forest School. This was climate resilience and food systems, a STEM approach to sustainable futures. This was a professional development that created materials for teachers to support students in analyzing climate data. So they were, so that the funding went to really give the foundation for these teachers to then take a program and bring it to their classrooms. But the program itself was working with climate data that's collected from various farms so that students could then look at that and analyze the resilience of different systems and start to design some solutions to the problems that Vermont is seeing when it comes to agriculture. Happy to share a full list of our previous awards with anybody, and I will be posting that on our website tomorrow, but we'll move on for now. So just want to emphasize, make sure that before you put in the time of the work to build your proposal, that this is a natural alignment with what project you're already trying to get off the ground. There is an RFP on our website that I'll drop the link in the chat in a moment. And you can also find the budget template at strivet.org. And also happy to support your proposal along the way. If you have questions that come up as we get closer to the deadline, I'm here. Amy is available. We can be reached at admin at strivet.org. And we're all about trying to make sure that these projects are successful and that your organizations have what they need to better serve Vermont students. So again, I'll just go over our deadlines one more time. So August 15th is where we're approaching. September 30th is kind of our last day that you would expect to hear from us by. We'd likely get word out sooner than that, but it does take a while to read through all the applications. And then if you don't make that deadline, or if you decide to resubmit after we provide some feedback, February 15th is the next deadline that we have. Those are the two cycles. And again, after those start dates, you would have 1 year to complete your project. I will make a little plug if there's anybody who is thinking about this and maybe doesn't have a project quite baked thoroughly yet and they want to learn more. We do accept community reviewers who would take maybe 2 hours of your time to read through some selected applications and then provide your feedback. And that is a great way to gain experience in grant writing if that's something that you are new to. All right. So again, our application, the URL is right there, but I will drop it in the chat here in a second. We encourage you to reach out with any questions to admin at strivet. And the QR code here is to our mailing list. You can also sign up at our website, but that is the best way to stay in touch in terms of this funding opportunity. But we also have our larger research SEED award, and we host workshops, and we're available as a resource to the entire state to support this type of work. So thank you all for your time, and I'm going to pause the recording and take any questions and anything that might have come up.